Welcome to Martini Time. Here we are on Monday, and hope you had a great day. And I wanted to talk today about the horns of dilemma. I was writing about that this morning, kind of a spin-off from our morning talk. And I read today that a bullfighter got gored because he tripped on his cape. And that's the real horns of dilemma. And other horns of dilemma. The news is full of the horns of dilemma. So we really need to look at it and see what it is. I just watched our Midsummer Mysteries. It's been running for mystery that's been running for 19 years, and it's got one more. Oh, so I have to find something else to watch in the afternoon. But in every mystery, almost every one, the murderer, of course. Now the Brits were very, they invented Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That was a British novel. So the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde is the proper face, respectable face that's presented to society. And in British society is very proper. What will people think? Very social consciousness, obsessed with manners, custom, propriety. We don't do that here. That whole this ethnic custom is the glue to British society. So even in the middle of a invasion or something, they have their tea time and they don't break their customs. But they also have this the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll was the front face, but then it turned and you saw Mr. Hyde. Or they're confused, I don't know. But the point is, there is a dark side behind the proper right side, you see. And these mysteries are all about this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, because you can't figure out who did the murder. And in Midsummer Mysteries, there's at least 3. Once they do one, they can't stop. So you go along with the inspector trying to collect the clues, and of all the cast of characters, they're all so innocent. They're all so proper, And so finally, the evidence mounts, and the murderer is trapped in a corner. They have to confess. And they always say, I had no choice. And they may have killed 3 or 4 people. The first one was to restore justice from grievances of the past, and then the second and the third were to cover up. But they had no choice. Now that really resonated with me, because we have this every day's news is a horns of dilemma. Now the horn of dilemma is when you are confronted with 2 choices. Should I do this or that? Or it's internalized. It's an internal division. And you can't choose one or the other. Both are a loser choice. So a dilemma is when no matter what you do, you lose. That's called a double bind. And we're constantly caught in these, but we don't really see them. We just muddle our way through or make the wrong choice and then regret it or whatever, but we really don't understand the science of it, the operating system of it, and why we get caught in it. So all of these violent acts that keep erupting like pimples being squeezed, or like volcano eruptions. Our society is kind of like Hawaii. and European society too, in London, So our society is kind of like Hawaii, where volcanoes keep popping up. So every time you have a van runs into a bunch of people, if you look at that person who did it, their subjective life, not the objective life, because that's obviously a murder and they should be convicted and all that. But from the subjective side, from inside the cockpit, you see, they will say, I had no choice. You see, I had no choice. So why is it that we ended in a place, and so there was a choice, but then, you see, here's the paradox. They chose to kill people, but they will be saying, I had no choice but to do it. I had no other way out of it. Because the intolerable double bind, the intolerable horns of dilemma, had reached such, which is an internal conflict, had reached such a intolerable pressure that the only thing that would relieve this pressure would be a mad, violent act. An insane act. And it's ironic that, I just thought of Avatar. Now, Jake Sully in Avatar was in a double bind, in a lose-lose situation. He could not choose to be a sky person, and he could not choose to be a Navi, if you remember that movie. And there was a point where he was in the dark night of the soul, on kind of like a desolate place, like a no man's land in World War II, barren. And he said, I don't know which world is real, the sky people world or the Navi, Pandora. I can't choose either one. Both rejected him. Both exiled him. He was in a limbo. So what did he do? He made an insane act. He described it. And because he was recording his thing on his little video journal. And he said, I made this insane act and I jumped on the last shadow. He jumped on the last shadow. Well, the last shadow was that dragon, remember? And it's called the last shadow because it's death. When you see this shadow, it's the last one you'll see. Because it's coming down on you, right? So he jumped on it. And he resolved the dilemma creatively. So the way out of the horns of dilemma, of the lose-lose, is a creative act, an insane act, a spontaneous act, an act no one thought of, an act not even you think of. It's an act that's not logical. It's an act that no one ever did before. It's a creative act, and that's what creativity is. No one's ever done it before. No one's ever said it before. No one's ever thought it before. It didn't exist before you did it. Okay? So that is the creative way out of the double bind, or the horns of the dilemma. The other way up, because you remember the pressure of these two comes in on you like this, you see, and it's intolerable to live in a split world that you can't choose your way out of. That's the whole point. We can only live in one reality. There is only one reality. Now, I'm talking subjective, the one you live in. The world is not a split screen or a wall-eyed world where one eye sees one reality and the other eye sees another one, and they're out of focus. You can't live like that. There are not two worlds. There's only one world. And we choose that world. Every choice creates a world. If I choose to go to Walmart, I choose myself going to Walmart. I don't choose myself going to Costco and Walmart at the same time. That's two. That's not possible. You can only choose one world. So whatever we choose, if I choose to quit right now and go to the bathroom, I chose one world. I'm going to the bathroom. I'm not here talking to you and going to the bathroom at the same time. I can't split reality. You see what I mean? So we choose reality. So we choose ourselves. So when we're in a situation where you can't choose, and here's the problem. Who is the self that I'm choosing? Well, it's my me, my respectful me, my proper me, the one people think well of, you see, the one people like and affirm me, you know. In other words, my persona, you see, my face that I sent to. So I have to protect that. So what if I'm in a situation where no matter what I choose, I lose face. I lose my respect. I lose my position. I lose my life, you see. And I can't have that. I can't have that. So I'm going to do something mad to break this logjam. Now that madness is going to go in two directions. It's going to go towards a violent act that destroys one of the horns of the dilemma. See, you got these two horns, right? What's this? You know, this people do this all the time. That's the horns of the dilemma. That's the bull horns. That's the bull horns, you see? But it's on one hand. It's one reality. It's not another reality. So you see, if I choose this, I don't choose that. But this and this are mutually dependent. So you can't choose one without the other. It's like choosing the reflection in the mirror instead of the mirror. Or choosing the mirror and leaving the reflection. They're mutually dependent. So every choice, you see, is between this and that. And when the choices are mutually dependent and both are loser choices, usually with this choice is good for me, that one's bad, boom, no problem, I choose that. But when they're both bad for me, it's a double bind, and you can't choose one and ignore the other because they're both mutually dependent. So you can't escape the horns of dilemma through choice. So you have to escape through an act. There's where the violent act comes from. The violent act will be to destroy one of these choices under the illusion that you will escape the jaws of the dilemma if you violently remove one of the horns, you see. Now that's left, you see. But it doesn't work that way because they are the same hand. So, I was thinking about Trump, Mr. Trump. Now he's stated flat out, I'm a winner. You're going to be bored with winning. I'm a win-win. And you follow me, you identify with me, you're going to be a win-win. You're going to be free from the horns of this dilemma, you know, which people feel that they're caught in the modern world. Everything I do, I work hard. Everything I do, I'm still broke. I play by the rules and I still lose. I play by the rules and I still lose. That's a dilemma. So that's like Bonnie and Clyde. They took a violent choice, right? So Trump basically says, win-win. I don't lose. Now what if he's in a situation, which is what he's in now, where he can't win-win? No. And so what can he do when he's got a lose-lose set of choices. He can create another reality. And he can call the other reality, the one that we're in, fake. And he can say, there's a deep state against me. There's this other reality, this other world that's against me, see? And so my reality is a win-win reality. But we look at it, and it's got no evidence. And we can obviously see where he contradicts himself, that he's creating this reality, you see. And why is he doing that? He has no choice. He can't choose lose. He can't be a loser. So in order to avoid being a loser, he'll create a reality in which he's a winner. But the reality slips the surly bonds to the ground, and it kind of like floats up there, you see. You know, like a balloon reality, separated from the ground, and we're on the ground. And we can see the false reality, and we can see the background, which is journalism, which is facts, you see. So we're seeing this tremendous contrast between his reality and the general reality, which we think is the one world, you see. So now we got two worlds. And he's saying my world is real and yours is false. And I'm saying my world is real and yours is false. So there's a war, you see, between his side and his spokespeople to affirm his side, his story, you see. But it's not based in facts. It's based in his facts. And so I think this is created because he cannot choose to lose. He cannot lose face. He cannot lose his image. And in order to, and when caught and pinned, you see, he will violently spin out an alternate reality and then live in that and really believe it. So I think he really perceives this alternate reality because he can't perceive. You see, we can only perceive one reality, and when he perceives one reality, the other reality has to be false. It has to be attacking him. It has to be against him, you see. Otherwise, he couldn't support it, and it would collapse and he would be a loser. He would collapse and he would be a loser, you see. And this is the situation where these violent acts that are erupting in our society today, objectively, of course, it's murder, and you put them away and you shoot them when they do it, whatever, you know. Of course, that's the objective. But you can't understand why it's happening objectively. Why? What are they getting out of it? What do they do something, they get shot. What are they getting out of it? They're not getting any future. It's rational for us to act for some future benefit. I don't do something for the benefit after I'm dead. And doing it for the benefit of being famous is kind of that doesn't fly, you know. So we can't understand it objectively. We have to understand it subjectively from a place where you were caught in a squeezing vice of contradictory commandments that you have to choose. This is a Zen cone. You'll hold up a Zen cone. Here's a Zen cone. If you say this is a martini glass or a martini, you're wrong. If you say it isn't a martini, you are wrong. Now choose. Which one is it? Or I'll punish you. That's a Zen cone. It forces you into two ways. You either stew with it and you come up with a creative response. And the creative response cannot be intellectual. It can't be a strategy to satisfy the master. No, he'll like this one. I'm really smart, you see. He'll say, get out of here. Smack you with a stick. It's got to be a spontaneous, creative response that you never thought of or conceived of. It's got to be, you got to jump on the last shadow. You got to jump on that you got to jump on death. You got to die to answer that question. That's the creative way. The violent way, and that's the only way to get out of this thing, is to die. Okay? So the creative way is to die to the ego. The ego collapses, the logic and the logic of the ego and the persona and my face and all of that. What will he think of me? I want the master to think well of me, so I got to come up with an answer he'll like, you see. All that has to go. What's left? I don't know. What's left is I don't know who I am. What's left is a spontaneous, creative act of life itself. And you have no idea what that'll be. So that's going in one direction. The other one is going to death, but not death of the ego, but death of the body. So this is like a metaphorical answer to a creative solution. So the violent answer is going to end up in your death or imprisonment and the loss of everything, you see. But it gets you out of that dilemma. It just creates another one. So your karma just creates the same thing going down. So, I hope you get the idea here that the creative act, the creative way out of this dilemma, does not create karma. It creates a new reality. The violent way out of the horns of dilemma does not create a, well, it's the violent action destroys the dilemma. Instead of transcending it to a new reality, it just destroys the other one of the horns. It would be like a tennis match. And they're going back and forth, and they're pretty equally matched. And one tennis player cannot stand it any longer. I've got to be number one. I cannot stand it. I've got to be number one. So he pulls out a gun and shoots the other tennis player. That's the violent way to be number one. The creative way is to create a new reality that's number one. A reality that never existed before. Like an iPad or an iPhone. You see, all this is technological ways of creating your way out of a double bind. Double binds are the mother of creativity or war. Either way. World War I, double bind. Who's the biggest? Who's going to win the match? Both sides are equally matched. They go on for 5 years. Afghanistan, double bind. Both, my phone is ringing. It was Phoenix. Who do I know in Phoenix? Oh, it's one of my telemarketer friends. I never answer any calls from Phoenix. But you get the idea here? To understand the double bind is to understand creativity and violence. And this is going on all the time. You get in a fight with your wife. There's a double bind. Who's right? Who's number one? This fight could end up in the husband decking the wife. Suddenly there's a little argument. Pow! Number one. Argument over. Number one. Kicks it down the road. Nothing solved, karma continues. So the creative act is love. The violent act is destruction. But the mother of both ways is the double bind, where you can't choose your way out. Okay. I hope that helps me understand this crazy world we're living in. Thanks for dropping in. I'll see you in the morning.